Incredible twist. Homeless heroine saves a child from flames you won't believe who came searching. The acrid scent of smoke pierced through the monotonous drone of summer heat. Emma, her body weary and skin wounded by the harsh elements, squinted at the sight of dark wisps spiraling into the bright blue sky above the building. In that moment, she felt the flicker of something inside her, a whispered echo of the compassion that once defined her life as a nurse. A child's desperate scream erupted from the flames, and without a moment's thought, she found herself racing towards the inferno, her heart pounding a steady rhythm of determination. What if no one remembers? The thought stung like a sharp steel blade. Once celebrated for her skills, now she was a shadow in the eyes of society, a mere transient, unseen and dismissed. But if she hesitated now, if she turned away, what would that say of her? That she chose her fragmented reality over the life of an innocent? Her hands trembled, not just from fear but from the weight of being reduced to nothing, yet her feet propelled her forward. Amidst the chaos, Emma felt a dizzying rush. There was a child trapped inside. The memories of her nursing days flooded back, the muster of medics in action, the courage that pulsed through her veins like a lifeline. Breathing hard, she squeezed through the smoke-infused doorway, memories of loss gnawing at her conscience with sharp, relentless waves. Who would come looking for her if she disappeared into the ashes, just as her family had? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The heat swelled around her, each wave crashing against her like a torrent of memories of laughter, of family, of hope. The panic-stricken wails of the child pulled her back to focus. Suddenly she was in the thick of it, disorienting, walls closing in, engulfing the light along with her once bright future. All those years of sacrifice seemed like a cruel joke played by fate. As she wrapped her arms around the small, trembling form of the child, her heart battled against the crushing weight of despair that had loomed ever since the loss of her family. With each step forward, she confronted the weight of judgment that clouded the minds of passers-by. Was she deserving of this act of bravery, or merely the victim of circumstance? Finally breaking free from the flames, she emerged into the daylight, cradling the child close to her chest. In that moment, time stood still. The town stared at her, astonished. But could they see her? Beyond the image of a hero, could they recognize the woman who once was, stripped bare by tragedy? As the sirens wailed in the distance and the thrill of her survival clashed with her ruined past, she understood that her fight was only beginning. Who would remember the courage beneath the soot? Who would dare to confront the stigma of her new life? The judgment felt heavier than the smoke that enveloped her. With Tom's name echoing in her mind, each syllable sparking a hidden connection she longed to explore, Emma realized this wasn't just about rescue. It was about reclaiming herself amidst the rubble of a life forgotten. The tension hung like a tightrope above turmoil, balancing between a past she couldn't slip away from and a future begging her to confront every hidden truth. What awaited her at the other end of this journey? Would the very man she admired from a distance find the courage to breach the divide? As stakes climbed, uncertainty clouded their intertwined fates, leaving the question, could redemption truly flourish amidst the despair? Emma's heart raced as she stepped onto the rubble-strewn sidewalk, the child still clinging to her, sobbing but alive. The crowd's stunned silence pressed in on her, a stark reminder that the chasm between who she was and what she had become loomed larger than the flames she'd just escaped. She caught glimpses of their wary eyes, uncertain whether to celebrate her bravery or judge her existence as a homeless woman. A fireman approached, his helmet glinting in the sun. "You did a remarkable thing," he said, but there was hesitation in his voice, as if caring for a hero and a vagrant were two conflicting narratives. Emma managed a tight smile, but the acknowledgement felt less like recognition and more like a label she barely had any claim to. As the adrenaline began to fade, her mind swirled with the remnants of her nursing days. She could see the child's frightened face, the wide eyes that would haunt her, possibly reminding her of the innocence she felt she'd lost too. This was no one-time act of heroism, it was an epiphany, an awakening of the better parts of herself that had slipped into shadows. Yet, what would happen now? Would the fire only burn brighter when the news of her actions traveled through the town? Would she, in a moment of clarity, feel the weight of the past inching toward her again? The sirens wailed, a cacophony in her mind that nearly drowned out her thoughts. She needed to think. Tonight would not be the end. Emma took a breath, steadied herself. Where would she go? The familiar ache for her old life tugged at her uniform, her patience, that sense of purpose. That could never return, the promise of a return felt foolish. But perhaps she could harness this moment. She glanced over at the fireman again, Tom, his rugged demeanor and the empathy that lingered in his eyes. Would he be willing to see beyond her now tattered exterior? Emma felt a tremor of vulnerability. Reaching out for help had always been against her instincts. Years of independence had fashioned walls around her, perhaps now it was time to start dismantling them. "Excuse me," she called, taking a step toward him, her intention carving a pathway through the crowd of gawkers. "Can we talk?" His eyebrows shot up, as if surprised that she had chosen to engage further. Clear disbelief flickered in his expression, accompanied by a hint of curiosity. He nodded, and she felt a surge of determination pull her upright. They stepped to the side, away from the prying eyes. "That child needs to be checked by medical personnel," she began, her voice caught in the weight of her own urgency. "I still remember how to help. I want to offer what I can. No one should face something like this without care." Tom's gaze intensified, his posture shifting as he regarded her more thoughtfully. "Are you sure?" "Completely." The resolve felt fiery in her chest, and for the first time in a long while, Emma could almost see a way forward, one that stitched together the life she used to live with the person she was determined to become. There was something inside her, a wellspring of hope she thought had been extinguished. But as moments stretched into silence, doubt crept in. Would they truly acknowledge her worth? Would she remain just the girl who lived in the alley, detached from memories of nursing? The chaotic noise around them faded, the roar of the flames still resonated in her mind. Emma understood this was a turning point not just for the child, but for herself. In a world quick to forget, could she reclaim the purpose she desperately sought? "Let's see if we can get you back where you belong, then," Tom said, his voice steady yet laden with unspoken questions. Her heart raced not just with fear but with eagerness. For the first time, she envisioned a path that wound through the rubble of her past, daring to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, she could rise again. As they walked toward the encroaching sirens together, Emma contemplated her own fragility hidden beneath newfound resolve. Yet thoughts of those she had lost loomed larger than before, a stark reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. Could she truly step into the future without being consumed by regret? Would she grasp at a second chance or waver under the pressure of expectations? The moment began to shift, her budding courage intertwining with uncertainty, leaving her teetering on the edge of a new reality. Emma felt the shadows of doubt creeping in, reminding her that a journey of healing was never a straight line. Would she find the bravery to face those inner demons, or would she crumble back into the anonymity that had once consumed her? The answer lingered in the air as they moved forward, together yet apart, towards the unknown. Emma's hands trembled as she followed Tom, the siren's wail echoing her internal chaos. Each step felt laden with not just her body, but the weight of lost years, decades of hard choices and fractured dreams. She had always prided herself on her ability to help others through her nursing skills, yet here she stood, stripped of all professional identity, teetering on the precipice of redemption or regression. They reached the makeshift triage area set up by the fire department. Emergency responders buzzed about, tending to shock-stricken onlookers as well as injured victims. Emma watched their confident movements and felt a clash within herself. Could she reinsert herself into this world she once belonged to, or had those days been buried under layers of despair, like the debris from the fire? Tom gestured toward a paramedic, signaling for attention. Emma could feel her pulse quickening as she fought against the waves of anxiety. Her nursing training kicked in, memories of 4 lines, CPR, and medical charts flashing vividly. Yet as she opened her mouth to speak, the voices of doubt drummed louder in her head. "You're just a bum," they taunted. "You don't belong here. She inhaled sharply. This was her moment. She glanced at the frightened child now being examined, a small figure shrouded in a blanket as he was reunited with the frantic mother. That image reignited the flame of resolve within her. This child had experienced trauma, another horrific moment like she had at one point. She remembered her own childhood fears when chaos encircled her. "I can help," Emma interrupted, her voice firm yet strained. The paramedics looked at her, skepticism etched into their expressions. "I used to be a nurse. I can do assessments, tell you what to look for." Tom stepped closer, his eyebrows knitted. "Did you really say you were a nurse?" "I was." Each word was a revelation, excavating a sliver of her identity. "I'm trained. Just because I've fallen from grace doesn't mean I've lost my skills." The paramedic, fearing any liability, shook his head. "We need trained personnel here, ma'am." "Call me Emma," she replied, holding his gaze. "I can help. I swear." Tom watched, his expression shifting from caution to consideration. The tension in the moment danced between them, a palpable standoff of faith. She realized this was not only about gaining their recognition, but also reclaiming a piece of herself she thought was long gone. "Let us see what you can do," Tom finally relented, his voice a mixture of authority and belief. "Show them, Emma." The weight of his support enveloped her, and with that acknowledgement, Emma moved forward, tapping into the old instincts that had lain dormant. She approached the medical team, focusing not on her past but on the present. As she assessed a coma patient, she felt every piece of training fall back into place, like a hydraulic click reconnecting loose gears. Her hands steadied. The work felt right, it echoed a long-lost sense of purpose. As she interacted with the team, an odd rhythm settled within her, a grounding balance. Each diagnosis she offered found its way to attentive ears, and she watched them listen as if a collaborative tapestry began to weave tightly around them. But just when Emma began to believe she could actually regain what had been stripped away, her thoughts suddenly spiraled outwards. What if this was a fleeting moment before the ground once again crumbled beneath her? Would her past come clawing back to pull her from this newfound foothold? Once again, she faced doubt. Against the swell of recovered confidence rose the specter of failure. Would they still see her as a capable nurse, or would society's harsh judgments keep her defined by her lowest points? The urgency of her situation cut deep, sparking questions that reverberated through her being. In the distance, she spotted the child from earlier, now being comforted by a nurse who was not unlike the version of herself she longed to reclaim. A desire surged deep within, a tangible yearning to serve once more and to fully step away from the shadow of shame. "You're doing great, Emma," Tom's voice broke through her haze. She looked back at him, meeting his steady gaze. In that moment, she realized that this struggle wasn't just about her rising again. It was about embracing the person she had been, accepting who she had become, and integrating both to forge a future where she could once again thrive. The child, a reflection of her own vulnerability, held the key to a deep, motivational promise. She pushed the lingering shadows aside and resolved to fight against doubt. Emma was not just a former nurse, she was a survivor capable of finding strength in chaos. As she moved amidst the emergency scene, the next challenge loomed. Would she grasp the encouragement she had found and make a desperate leap towards professional rehabilitation, or would fear tether her too firmly to the life she'd just begun to shake free? The coming hour would certainly test her resolve. Would tomorrow's headlines see her as a hero or simply an anomaly in a world that often wielded judgment? The thoughts rolled through her mind, pressing her resolve as she prepared to confront the unfolding chaos. The screams and shouts morphed into a strangely rhythmic background hum as Emma found her center. Each pulse of adrenaline reminded her that, despite the doubt still slithering through her consciousness, she was equipped to help. And she needed to focus. This moment wasn't about her, it was about those who needed her. She stepped further into the chaos, her eyes scanning the injured and the frantic faces of onlookers. A man struggled to support a bloodied hand, while a woman sobbed into her phone, pleading for information about a loved one. The air was thick with smoke and despair, but amid it all, Emma stripped away her burdens and embraced her training. "Tom," she called to him, urgency bleeding into the words. "I need to help with assessments. He nodded, a hint of belief replacing caution. Go ahead. I'll support you. With each step towards the thrumming heart of the situation, Emma felt her past merge with her present. She wasn't just a shadow, she was a nurse again, even if only for this moment. Her hands worked as she checked vitals and comforted the frightened. As she moved, she reveled in the sensation of wearing scrubs, even if just in her mind. But self-doubt drummed persistently in her ears. Was she truly fitting into this role, or merely playing at an identity she once owned? Each patient she attended sparked a flicker of competence. Breath steadied, hearts calmed, and she recognized the flicker of gratitude mirrored in relieved eyes. Then came the moment that would become a crossroads for her recovery. A woman collapsed in front of her, an intense panic flaring in her dilated pupils. Help me. The woman gasped, pointing to her infant cradled in her arms, whose small body lay slack against her chest. Emma dropped everything. Instinct bridged the distance from doubt to decisive action. She knelt beside the mother, her heartbeat crashing in her ears, but she forced herself to breathe deeply, recalling the protocols embedded in her psyche. One hand gently grasped the child's wrist to check for a pulse, while her other hand placed itself on the mother's shoulder. She searched for reassurance in the mother's worried gaze, a conversation without words that sparked something deeper within Emma, a connection, a reaffirmation of what she once valued. We're going to help, she whispered. Where's the nearest hospital? The mother's face twisted with dread, but Emma's steady presence calmed the chaos. She instructed another paramedic to call in for immediate evacuation while monitoring the infant's vital signs. Each tick of the second hand felt like a reminder of the urgency at stake, constricting her chest with pressure. Non-responsive, she relayed to Tom, her voice clipped with urgency. We need an AED, now. The paramedics shifted quickly into motion, her command looping back the trust that had been building. Emma's mind moved in mechanical motions: assess, act, analyze. She finally embraced the rhythm of the scene, harnessing the confidence that she could indeed do this. But just as she began to feel the uplift of empowerment, the past clawed at her thoughts again. Those moments of failure, of being discarded, chose their moment to resurface like insidious ghosts. What if she failed this child? What if her knowledge wasn't enough? No. This was different. She focused on the task at hand and recalled every ounce of training, piecing it together as she would have done in the past, precise and articulate actions flowing from a mind that had once been sharp. Yet doubt clawed insistently at the edges of her resolve. Stay with me, she breathed, her voice steady as she pressed her fingers against the infant's chest, preparing for CPR. The world narrowed into a tunnel, punctuated by the heartbeat she could no longer feel. She was a storm of chaos and control, teetering on the brink of redemption. The AED finally arrived, and she worked with certainty anew. At that moment, she knew this was not merely an act of redemption, but a rebirth. What was once just a flicker of herself was roaring back to life. But just as she prepared her next move, the tension swelled around her. An angry voice broke through the haze. What are you doing? Get away from my baby. She turned, an intrusive figure pushing through the throng. The decision loomed. Would she stand her ground and confront this unknown threat, or would fear once again stifle her voice? Emma fell into that familiar space of trepidation, aware that the path ahead would demand everything she had fought for. The moment had come, to reclaim her identity or retreat to the shadows once more. How this challenge would unfold could shift everything for Emma. Would she finally confront the inner demons that haunted her past, or would she let them sink her back into the abyss she fought so hard to escape? The world around Emma twisted into a blur. The mother's anguished face blurred into a shadow of fear, but the figure that approached her, a man with wild eyes, was all too clear. With every heartbeat, doubt clawed at her insides. He was a stranger, a raw nerve exposed in this already chaotic scene. Get away from her. His voice pierced the air, thick with accusation and anger. She felt his hostility rip through her confidence. What if he was right? What if she was just another misguided bystander? But the weight of the infant in her hands, the reality of the mother's silent pleas, anchored her. Please, she pleaded, holding the infant closer. "We're trying to help." "You call that help?" He stepped closer, eyes locked on the child, wild and desperate. "You don't know anything." "No." Emma's voice rose instinctively, a raw strength surging beneath her words. "I'm trained. I've done this before. I'm saving her." With that proclamation, a shudder of empowerment coursed through her, drowning out the old fears that haunted her. The baby lay still in her watchful gaze, vulnerable and silent. She turned her attention back to the infant and continued, "You need to trust me." She lowered her voice, approaching him with caution and control. "I need everyone to clear the area. We need space to work." Tom, sensing the urgency and tension, stepped in, asserting authority. "She's a nurse. You need to let her do her job. I promise we're here for your child." The man's eyes flared with skepticism, and the unending conflict within Emma began to unfold. Her past failures surged forward. What if she was wrong? What if he was right? But reinforcing her resolve, she focused again on the tiny figure before her. The infant depended on her. She could not afford to let confusion dictate her actions. With strategic clarity, she tore her gaze away from the harried father and shifted focus to the AED. The medic hurried back, breathless and ready. "Here," he called, thrusting the device into her hands, a lifeline she grasped with urgency. Without hesitation, she placed the pads on the infant's chest, her fingers trembling only for a heartbeat. "Stand back," she instructed with a newfound authority that felt foreign yet welcoming. As the machine began assessing, she barely registered the murmurs around her. The fear in the father's eyes still loomed heavy, challenging her resolve more than the frantic scene itself. She felt the pressure building, judgment dripping from the onlookers, expectations soaring with the rising tide of panic. "Charging." The AED's voice echoed, and she pressed the button, sending the electric surge into the infant's fragile frame. Just like that, the essence of her past coalesced with her present. She wasn't just reacting from instinct, she was intentionally reclaiming purpose. "Do it again," Emma urged, determination threading her tone. The AED followed her command, and her mind soared with clarity: assess, act, respond. Each pulse pulled her deeper into the role she once inhabited, the identity she had let slip through her fingers. Once more, she delivered the shock. And then silence. The haze began to lift, as though the weight of loss had, if only momentarily, released its grip on her heart. The infant, she was still struggling, but with the flicker of breath, there was hope. Suddenly, the father's demeanor shifted. His anger melted into desperation, the scowl replaced by something that resembled recognition. Emma's eyes locked onto his, and in that instant of vulnerability, she saw the reflection of her own fears. They weren't so different, was it possible? As she continued the CPR rhythmically, Emma realized how her journey was intertwined with this man's too. They were both fighting their battles, standing at the precipice of the unknown. Yet, at that moment, she couldn't dwell on his fears. With each compression, she acknowledged her strength, persistent and unwavering. She wouldn't falter again. Then, just as the infant began to cough lightly, the shadows of her self-doubt hovered ominously at the edges. Despite the success, the haunting specter of her past failures lurked just behind her burgeoning confidence. The father took a step forward, almost protective. "Is she okay?" His voice was raw, an odd mix of dread and hope. Emma's eyes flickered toward the barely responsive infant and then back to him. "She's going to be all right." But doubt screamed within her consciousness. What if she wasn't right? The believe and fail dichotomy played a relentless tune in her mind. She could not let the fear of the unknown dictate her next move. Steeling her resolve, she made a silent pact with herself. This was her moment. She would confront every doubt, every failure, and pull strength from both. As the authorities finally arrived, her heart raced. Emma sensed the turning tide. This was more than just saving a child, this was her confrontation with the winding path of her own redemption. But would this moment of connection be enough to lay her ghosts to rest? And just as she turned to face the father again, a new uncertainty clouded her thoughts. He leaned closer, eyes searching. Who are you? That question struck deep. Could she reveal herself, the nurse she used to be, the woman still searching for her lost spirit? Or would her answer unravel the hard-won strength she had just grasped? The weight of his inquiry hung heavy in the air, ushering in the next chapter of her tumultuous journey. Emma's heart thundered in the silence that followed the father's question. She felt stripped of her newfound strength, as if the world was waiting for a revelation she wasn't ready to disclose. Who was she, really? A nurse? A failure? Although her instincts screamed for clarity, the complexity of her identity rushed in, tangled with memories of loss and inadequacy. He searched her face, wanting an answer, needing assurance. The vulnerability in his eyes mirrored the turmoil within her. I'm Emma, she finally said, her voice steadier than she felt. I'm a nurse. No sooner had she uttered the words than a rush of memories cascaded through her mind, each moment of failure, every whispered doubt from coworkers and patients alike. Each time she walked away from a situation that hadn't turned out the way she vowed it would. She had dedicated herself to healing, yet the fear of exposing her true self gnawed at her. This man deserved more than just her title. He deserved to know the truth. Her gaze shifted back to his daughter, who was now visibly breathing, albeit unevenly. She needs help, and I can do it, Emma reassured him, urgency seeping into her tone. But I need you to trust me. With a nod, the father seemed to accept her authority, but his expression was mixed relief, oddly intertwined with disbelief. It was a reflection of her own internal struggle. While she pushed past her doubts, his mistrust lingered. How could she save this child when she hadn't yet saved herself? The arrival of emergency responders brought a new wave of tension, yet a strange sense of security washed over her. They quickly assessed the situation, processing the details before diving into action. Emma took a step back, her heart racing, her mind swirling. Suddenly, she was no longer the sole protector of the child, she was just another participant in the unfolding chaos, but much more aware of what was at stake. In the moment of observation, a thought took root. She observed the experienced responders directing traffic, debating methods, galvanizing teamwork. Their confidence was palpable, a source of inspiration she badly needed. What if she could step into that realm? What if she could reclaim her identity beyond just being a nurse but as a leader in the medical community? The thought crested over her like a light. In her last position, she had been relegated to the background, overshadowed by more senior staff, causing her to doubt her capabilities. Yet here, in the heat of crisis, she witnessed the ripple effect of her bravery manifesting in the eyes of the father, who now stood resolute as they worked together, determined not to lose hope. Emma, a voice interrupted her ruminations. It was Tom, the medic, who grinned despite the chaotic atmosphere. Why don't you assist with transportation? There's more to do. His uplifting tone ignited a flicker of pride within her. Yes, let us do it. Emma straightened her back, her resolve crystallizing. The adrenaline surged back, mingling with her nerves, catalyzing an unknown energy. Sorting through her protective instincts for the infant, she felt the flickers of her old self sprouting like a hidden talent, a desire to contribute meaningfully in every role she took on. The path to recovery for her wasn't just about mending her past, it was about actively participating in a narrative of healing, reclaiming her rightful place. She moved to assist, relaying vital signs to incoming paramedics. Each fact felt empowering, a language she had nearly forgotten. Each step she took was an act of defiance against her insecurities, reinforcing her identity as more than just a nurse she was capable of leading, of adapting, of fearlessly confronting her own doubts. As they prepared the infant for transport, the father met her gaze once more. His features softened, and an understanding passed between them, a silent agreement to confront their fears together. Emma marveled at the bond forming, perhaps they were not so different after all. But as the ambulance door swung shut, her heart fluttered with uncertainty. She wasn't out of the shadows yet, and the lingering specter of her past still loomed. Stepping back, Emma felt a sense of liberation blend with the fear of what lay ahead. She had taken back her narrative in this moment, but other battles awaited her, battles that lay not just in her profession but in her own relentless self-judgments. Emma, the father called softly, stopping her mid-step. Are you okay? For a fleeting moment, she opened her mouth to answer but hesitated. Instead, she nodded, unsure if she was strong enough yet to reveal the full truth. Would disclosing her doubts shatter the fragile confidence she'd begun to rebuild? And just as she wrestled with her thoughts, a shrill siren turned her attention. What awaited her on this journey back to stability? Would she find the resilience to confront deeper fears? The tension of possibility hovered like the siren's wail, a prelude to the challenges she would need to face both within herself and her profession. Emma took a deep breath. This was just one beginning of many to come. Just as a new chapter was unfolding, she felt the weight of something significant poised to change her journey entirely. Stay with me, the father said, and in that moment, she knew they would need to confront their uncertainties together, revealing the strength hidden beyond their shared vulnerabilities. How far would she go to find her truth, to pull herself from the depths of despair she so often found herself in? Emma stood rooted on the sidewalk, the brakes of the ambulance echoing in her thoughts, mingling with the distant cries of the father and the frenzied bustle of emergency responders. The profound relief of having taken action contended with the nagging whispers of doubt that had crept back into her mind. Could she maintain this newfound momentum? Could she transform this moment of clarity into something lasting? The father's parting gaze lingered in her memory, a mixture of gratitude and unvoiced questions. And there lay a breadth of emotions just beneath the surface. What if the trust he placed in her exposed her vulnerabilities? What if his perception of her strength was merely a projection, a notion that she didn't truly embody? The reactions of her colleagues threaded through her mind, how they often viewed her with skepticism, their doubts casting shadows on her abilities. Part of her wished she could brush all of that aside. As the ambulance sped away, Emma began to pace, her mind racing with questions, embarking on a mental journey that teetered on the edge of tumult. She could sense the ambiguity of her professional path at that very moment. Was she truly ready to emerge from the shadows? The irony of a nurse questioning her purpose felt absurd. She had always nurtured the hope of making a difference, and yet, at times, it felt like she was constantly falling short. Determined to push through the fear pulling at her core, she made her way back to the hospital, her head spinning with the details of what had just occurred. Each beat of her heart resonated with possible transformations. What could she learn from this experience? How could she navigate this new commitment to herself without succumbing to self-imposed limitations? As she stepped into the bustling hospital environment, the tension she felt beforehand surged anew. Colleagues brushed past, acknowledging her with nods, glances that danced between indifference and curiosity. Intensity radiated from their conversations, each word contributing to the fast-paced rhythm of a life she wanted to renew. "Hey, Emma," came a voice from the break room. It was Sarah, a fellow nurse who had always seemed both supportive and distant, her kindness muddled with an air of hierarchy. "I heard an ambulance came in with a baby. Is it true?" "Yes." Emma took a deep breath, finding reassurance in Sarah's enthusiasm. "I was the one I was there first." Emma saw the spark of interest grow in Sarah's eyes, a flicker that ignited a sense of pride within her. This was her chance to validate her experience not just for herself, but for someone else. "You should feel proud of yourself," Sarah continued. "It's not every day you step up like that. People notice." Professional validation helped to ease some of Emma's anxiety. "I just did what I had to do," she replied, aware of her persistent need to downplay her accomplishments. "What you did was incredible," Sarah countered, leaning in. "But why does it feel like you're holding back? You shine in those situations, why not embrace it?" Emma almost recoiled at the probing depth of Sarah's honesty. How could anyone see through her facade so effortlessly? "I guess," she faltered, her voice trailing off. "I don't know if I can keep it up." "Then let us work on it together," Sarah urged, an unexpected warmth fondling Emma's guarded heart. "You know what you're capable of. This isn't just a one-time thing. You could lead on shifts, help orchestrate better patient flow, you have ideas." The concepts flared through Emma's mind like a warm glow cutting through winter's chill. The chance of leading, of possibly reshaping nursing practices bore a weighty significance. But was she truly ready? After their brief exchange, however, her sense of resolve flickered. The thought of taking charge meant stepping beyond the safety of her comfort zone. Was this the beginning, or yet another moment teetering on the brink of failure? Emma? It was Tom again, breaking into the mix as he joined them in the break room. Heard you were amazing earlier. What's next for you? It was a simple question carried by sincerity, yet it dragged an avalanche of contemplation into Emma's fragile realm of self-belief. Could she accept the leadership roles that lay ahead? Inwardly, she began to wrestle with a burning desire to push further into her potential, pondering the road she could take. Each choice pulled at pieces of her identity. Each choice could be a step toward building an impactful career or yet another reminder of her limits. As she considered the immense weight of responsibility connoted by leadership, she felt the familiar flicker of intimidation rise at the thought of failure. But this time, its intensity was met with a staunch determination to push through fear. What if I said yes? She muttered, more to herself than anyone else. The words surged forth, electrifying her surroundings and startling her companions. Tom and Sarah exchanged looks of surprise and encouragement, as if they were witnessing the emergence of a version of Emma that had long been dormant. Then we get you started, Tom replied, his enthusiasm palpable. Emma felt the shift within her, a resonance of hope beginning to anchor her resolve. Her journey unfolded in front of her like an opportunity to reclaim not just her title, but her identity. What awaited her was unclear, but a burgeoning possibility glimmered on the horizon. Driven by the prospect of future challenges and opportunities, she thought, could this be the turning point? As her heart raced with anticipation, she knew this was only the beginning. What kind of leader would she become? Would she embrace the full capacity of her abilities? Outside, the city hummed with life, pulsating beneath the surface. The sirens faded, but their echoes resonated within Emma's spirit. What awaited her as she dared to push beyond her fears? Would she step into the boots of a leader, or retreat once again into doubt? The path loomed ahead, ready to reveal its truths. Emma found herself standing in front of her locker, fingers fidgeting with the combination as she processed everything that had just transpired. The break room conversation with Tom and Sarah echoed in her ears, a chorus of encouragement mingled with doubt, creating a melody she struggled to comprehend. What did it truly mean to step into leadership? Was she capable of carrying the weight of others' expectations? As she pushed open the locker door, searching for the scrubs that symbolized her role, she noticed something, a small framed picture she had almost forgotten, a snapshot of her first day as a nurse, full of ambition and dreams. That moment felt poignant now, a stark contrast to the uncertainties she felt. Could she still embody that idealistic version of herself? With renewed purpose, Emma set her mind on a plan. She needed to channel her discomfort into something productive. If she aimed to take on more responsibilities, she would have to educate herself, master the skills necessary to lead confidently rather than merely hold authority. The hospital was vast, its corridors both familiar and foreign. She decided to head to the staff library. Among the shelves stacked with medical volumes, case studies, and nursing journals, Emma sought guidance on leadership in nursing practice. As she flipped through the pages, she absorbed stories of nurses who transformed their departments through innovation and empathy, who faced their fears head-on and emerged stronger. Each story resonated with her silent yearning for growth. In a particularly compelling article, a nurse shared her journey of taking charge during a severe staffing shortage. The challenges she faced prompted a wave of discontent, yet she transformed those frustrations into an initiative that improved team dynamics. Emma felt the weight of her own uncertainties diminish with each anecdote. It forged a connection in her mind, perhaps she could inspire change, rather than fear it. From that moment on, Emma diligently noted concepts and strategies that aligned with her vision for enhancing patient care. She knew that merely recognizing her potential would not suffice, she would have to act. Stepping out of the library, her mind churned with renewed energy, but lingering anxieties chased her thoughts. As she headed towards the observation area overlooking the emergency room, she stumbled upon a situation unfolding before her. A patient was being wheeled in, vitals were unstable, and everyone was operating under duress. Emma felt a tremor of panic, yet she steeled herself against it. It was one thing to read about leadership, it was another to witness it in practice. Instinctively, she positioned herself near the trauma team, observing with intent as they worked. Her heart raced in tandem with their actions, every motion coordinated, a choreography of precision and skill. They relied on trust, communicating without hesitation, and for the first time, Emma questioned whether she could not only participate but also lead such operations. As the adrenaline surged, her body reacted before her mind could catch up. Approaching the lead nurse, Emma offered insights gleaned from her earlier readings, suggesting a streamlined process for registering patient histories. The lead nurse, initially surprised, nodded in appreciation, their collaboration sparking a shift in the atmosphere. Emma felt a flicker of something powerful. She was contributing, actively influencing the outcome. But even as the adrenaline began to fade, self-doubt crept back. Was she merely being impulsive? The fear of overstepping shadowed her thoughts, but it mingled with exhilaration. She was cognizant of the risk in her choices. The path of leadership demanded constant confrontation with discomfort. Returning to the break room, the energy in her chest pulsed with focus. Each heartbeat was a reminder of the responsibility about which she had just begun to learn. What awaited her tomorrow, in her pursuit of leadership? Tomorrow, she whispered, the word reverberating through her mind. That's when I truly begin. And as she contemplated her next steps, beginning with stepping outside her comfort zone, a new thought emerged. What if she presented her observations to the team at the next staff meeting? The idea was daunting, but there was power in the uncertainty. Would her colleagues recognize her potential, or dismiss her efforts as mere enthusiasm? A shiver ran down her spine with a mix of fear and hope. The moment had arrived for her to either remain on the sidelines or thrust herself into the fray. Emma inhaled deeply, determination mingling with trepidation. What awaited her when she took that leap? Would she find her voice, or would the lingering shadows of doubt continue to cloud her ability to lead? The question haunted her, solidifying her resolve as she prepared for whatever lay ahead. Each choice divorced from doubt, every action resonating with purpose, sparkled like a beacon against the fog of uncertainty. Emma's heart pounded against her chest as she entered the break room the following morning. The familiar clatter of coffee cups and the smell of brewed caffeine usually provided comfort, but today it felt like a battleground. She had made a choice, albeit a terrifying one, to share her thoughts at the staff meeting. The prospect both thrilled and terrified her. After a long night of restless thoughts, she mentally reshuffled her notes. Each concept, each observation she jotted down had a purpose. No longer would she allow fear to hold her back. But as she gathered her courage, she grappled with the inherent vulnerability that came with speaking up. What if they mocked me? A voice in her head taunted. What if they dismissed my ideas as naive? Despite the self-doubt, something deep within her felt a shift. She realized that leadership wasn't merely about authority, it was about fostering an environment where ideas could flourish, including her own. With each step closer to the meeting room, her feet seemed to gain weight, yet her resolve lightened. Standing behind the group of her colleagues, she felt an electric charge in the air. They chatted animatedly, glancing at one another with expressions of trust and camaraderie, unaware of the storm brewing within her. Emma scanned the faces before her. Tom's encouraging grin, Sarah's supportive nod. It was in those familiar eyes that she found a glimmer of reassurance. As the meeting commenced, she silently rehearsed her notes. An initial wave of panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she inhaled deeply, grounding herself. A sense of urgency stirred inside her. If she didn't speak now, this moment might slip away. When the discussion turned to areas for improvement in patient care, Emma raised her hand, feeling as though the world could hear her heart race. Can I share an idea? Her voice trembled, yet she plunged ahead, fueled by the memories of nurses who had transformed challenges into solutions. For the next few minutes, she articulated her suggestions, streamlining the patient history process, improving communication among shifts, and emphasizing collaborative care. As she spoke, she witnessed subtle changes among her peers. The initial surprise in their expressions morphed into engagement. Tom leaned in, nodding thoughtfully, while Sarah took notes, a supportive smile radiating encouragement. Their enthusiasm sparked a fire within her, pushing away the shadows of doubt. Time seemed to slow as she described her vision. Each word felt like a brick laid in the foundation of her emerging leadership. By the end of her brief presentation, Emma felt lighter, as if the weight of hidden potential had finally been unleashed. But as she wrapped up, a familiar fear crept back. Would her colleagues take her seriously? Would anyone value her input? The lead nurse, Judith, with years of experience etched into her features, broke the silence. Emma, your ideas are insightful. It's refreshing to see someone with such passion. We could certainly try implementing those suggestions. A wave of relief washed over Emma, but just as quickly, a new layer of anxiety surfaced. Now she had to deliver. The decision to take that step propelled her into a new arena, one fraught with challenges but also filled with potential for growth. The meeting took on a different rhythm, with discussions sparked by Emma's input. Ideas bounced around the room, igniting conversations that had been dormant for too long. In that dynamic environment, Emma felt something shift within herself. She wasn't just a nurse anymore, she was a contributor, an advocate for improvement. But as the meeting concluded, she caught glimpses of a few skeptical expressions lingering in the back of the room. It dawned on her that not everyone would embrace change with open arms. An uneasy feeling settled in her stomach, and she pondered the reality that accepting leadership meant facing not only support but also resistance. That evening, as she reflected on her day, Emma grappled with a new realization. The path ahead was complicated. Leadership wasn't some golden ticket. It required continuous effort, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront dissent. The battle for acceptance had only begun, and she would have to navigate the rough waters ahead. As she closed her notebook, preparing for another day, a singular thought crystallized in her mind. How would she respond when faced with opposition? Would she fold under pressure or evolve through it? The stakes had risen, and Emma felt the weight of her burgeoning role pressing against her chest. Tomorrow would be telling. What awaited Emma in her journey towards leadership? Would her voice thrive amidst skepticism, or would it waver in the face of challenge? The next day, Emma stepped into the hospital with renewed determination. The glow of the rising sun filtered through the windows, spilling light onto the worn floor tiles. Today was not merely a day, it was a stark turning point. A moment to lay aside the debris of doubt and step into the promise of her potential. In the break room, the buzz of morning chatter enveloped her, warm and inviting. Tom and Sarah exchanged knowing smiles as she entered, but Emma felt a pang of nervousness beneath their supportive gazes. This day would challenge her resolve, forcing her to confront any lingering uncertainties and emerge with clear conviction. With her heart racing, she gathered herself before the staff meeting once more. The purpose was clear: she had a plan to propose that could reshape their patient care model. She mentally rehearsed her notes, focusing on the core message: the need for streamlined communication during shift changes. As the room filled, a sense of solidarity formed. Her colleagues began to settle in, and she felt a spark of confidence build within her. When the time came for her to speak, Emma stood firm. Thank you all for gathering. I want to build on our previous discussions, specifically on how we can enhance our handoff procedures between shifts for better patient outcomes. As she presented her structured approach, Emma noticed her message resonating. Colleagues began nodding, engaged in her words. Their response served as fuel, and she pressed on, articulating the importance of transitional care and the impact it could have. Midway through, a voice piped up from the back. It was Judith, the lead nurse. Emma, I've seen this proposed before, but aligning shifts has always been a challenge with our staffing limitations. What makes this approach different? Emma steadied herself, anticipating challenges. I understand those concerns, Judith. What I propose is not just a protocol change, but a cultural shift towards open communication. By prioritizing information exchange and fostering oncology champions at each shift, we can empower every nurse while ensuring patient care remains seamless. For a moment, silence enveloped the room. Emma felt that familiar knot in her stomach tighten, but a sense of resolve burst forth. This was not merely about earning approval, it was about demonstrating her commitment to improving conditions for her patients and her team. After a tense pause, Tom raised his hand. I think Emma's onto something. We can pilot her plan in one area of the department and assess its impact. As her fellow nurses engaged earnestly in the discussion, Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had crossed a threshold, stepping into a role where her input mattered. But despite the positive dialogue, she remained aware that not all her colleagues would easily embrace these changes. The realization hit leadership isn't just about presenting ideas. It calls for resilience in the face of dissent and humility when recognizing differing perspectives. As they finalized details for the pilot program, Emma compiled everyone's thoughts, reminding herself to stay open and adaptable. Days turned into weeks, and the pilot was launched. Emma dedicated herself to its success, actively participating during the entire trial process and documenting outcomes. Her hands transformed into tools of engagement, crafting feedback loops among colleagues and ensuring they all felt supported. Slowly, the new structure began to resonate. Patients reported feeling seen and heard, while staff communicated more openly. The threads of trust strengthened within her team, and the atmosphere felt lighter, more vibrant. Yet progress came with hurdles. Emma faced criticism from some who were resistant to change. Each encounter weighed heavily on her, threatening to smother her resolve. Rather than retreating, she listened to their concerns, seeking to understand their fears. Emma, one nurse lamented, "This idea is great, but what if we can't maintain it?" Each comment chipped away at her confidence, compelling her to grapple with guilt. She wasn't just confronting the challenges of others, she had to overcome the self-doubt that threatened to undermine her leadership progress. Feeling defeated one evening, Emma wandered into the staff library once more. She flipped through pages thick with wisdom, reflecting on what she had learned along her journey. It dawned on her leadership isn't about perfection, it is about progress. Through these reflections, Emma realized her fulfillment stemmed not from unchallenged success but from her ability to navigate setbacks. Instead of shying away from her insecurities, she needed to integrate them as part of her journey. The next day, as she faced her peers, she chose to open a dialogue. "I value all your opinions," she said, her voice steady yet warm. "I've realized that discussions around following this new structure are crucial. I want to hear your thoughts. How can this work for all of us?" In that moment, affirmations of change intertwined with a newfound humility. Her colleagues responded differently, expressing relief at having their voices heard. It transformed the previous conversation into a mutual dialogue where they could work collaboratively to construct a path forward. Weeks passed, and as better systems took shape, Emma felt a shift in herself too, a deep-seated confidence rooted in the understanding that leadership wasn't meant to be solitary. It was about building bridges, empowering others, and fostering collaboration. They celebrated small successes together, promoting a culture of cheer. By the time the pilot's success was reported, Emma felt a solid familiarity course through her veins. She had reclaimed not only a career but her identity. Her journey, marked by trials and resilience, led her to embrace her worth and the immense potential to influence change. As the announcement of the program's results beamed triumphantly across the staff room, the applause that followed resonated deeper than any pat on the back. It validated her identity forged amidst striving. The initial whispers of being just a nurse transformed into a newfound recognition: she was a leader. Standing there, amidst laughter and camaraderie, Emma found her voice, a voice she reclaimed not as an echo of her past but as the embodiment of her future. She had conquered her personal adversities, merging her journey with professional aspirations. In her heart, she kept a silent promise: she would ensure that her journey would always inspire her to uplift not just herself but those around her. The shadows of her past illuminated the way, guiding her towards the light of her potential. And as she glanced around the room, she understood this was not merely the conclusion of a chapter but the beginning of new narratives. Each nurse, each patient, their stories interwoven into a collective journey of healing and growth. Emma had unveiled her truth, and now she was ready to share it with the world. Don't wait any longer. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and tell us you want more. Comment your reactions and theories about Emma's incredible journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who could find strength in the power of transformation. Show your support now and be part of this remarkable community.